Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Valentine Sports Show. I'm your host, Frank Rampin. The Super Wildcard weekend in the NFL has come to an end after Monday night's affairs. Let's dive into the weekly recap and then preview a little bit of next week, the divisional round. So, we'll start things off in the AFC East like we always do. The Buffalo Bills take down the Denver Broncos at home at Orchard Park, 31-7. The Broncos actually went up in this game 7-0. 31 unanswered points to end the game from Buffalo, asserting their dominance, moving on to the divisional round. Josh Allen went 20 of 26 for 272, 2 touchdowns, and he also ran for 46 yards. Josh Allen in his career has 15 touchdowns and 2 picks in 5 wildcard games, so pretty good from him. Josh Allen threw his 22nd postseason touchdown of his career, passes Jim Kelly for the most in Bills history, which is pretty impressive, as in that Jim Kelly-led Bills team made 4 straight Super Bowls, obviously not winning any of them, but still made it to 4 straight Super Bowls. That's a lot of playoff games under his belt. James Cook rushed 23 times for 120 yards and a touchdown, the most rush yards by a Bills player in a playoff game since 1995 when Thurman Thomas did it. 5th straight home win in the wild card round for Buffalo. It seems to be a yearly occurrence now. And Buffalo set a plethora of postseason franchise records during this game. 247 yards, more than the Broncos, the biggest yards margin in history of Bills playoffs. They had the ball for 41 minutes and 43 seconds. They almost had the ball for 42 out of the 60 minutes in this football game. Unbelievable. They were the first team since the 2012 49ers with 250 passing yards and 200 rushing yards in the same playoff game. And next weekend, the matchup we all have been waiting for against the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen in Orchard Park, New York. What a game this is going to be. Get your popcorn ready. And I'm going to be at a wedding during this game. So you know me, I'm going to be locked in on my phone. Brutal time for a wedding, Alec. Come on, brother. Just kidding, Alec. I love you, brother. All right. Next game. 2 seed from the 2 seed in the AFC to the 2 seed in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat Green Bay 22-10 in a physical battle. Both offenses didn't look so good in this game. Jalen Hurts looked okay. Jordan Love did not. And these defenses were slugging it out. The Packers defense actually played a very, very good game, but man, the offense just couldn't string anything together. And this Philly defense played so physical. It was unbelievable. Saquon Barkley, 25 carries for 119 yards. 119 yards is the most ever in an Eagles playoff debut. 12th game this season that Saquon goes over 100 yards on the ground, the most by any player in their first season with the team. Jalen Hurts went 13 for 21, only 131 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 36 rushing yards. Hurts does have 8 passing touchdowns and 0 picks in his last 7 games. They did force 4 turnovers in this game. A fumble on the opening kickoff of the game. Keyshawn Nixon, the all-pro returner, got popped, fumbled the ball. Eagles recover. A couple plays later, touchdown. 3 picks later in the game from Jordan Love. Brutal showing from him. 4 turnovers, the most in an Eagles playoff game since the 2001 NFC divisional round. And teams, when they get 4 turnovers, 87-2 in the playoffs. So, pretty good recipe for success. The Washington Commanders, they beat Tampa Bay 23-20 in the best game by far of wildcard weekend. This was the Sunday night game. First playoff win for Washington since the 2005 wildcard game, also against the Bucs, snapping the 3rd longest active streak in the NFL. The only teams that have a longer drought. The Raiders, they are second. And number 1, have not won a playoff game. I think it's 23 or 4 years now. The Miami Dolphins. So just the Raiders and the Dolphins with a longer streak than that. And honestly, either of those don't look like they're ending anytime soon. Jaden Daniels, unbelievable rookie season. Basically cemented his Rookie of the Year status 4 weeks ago. But if you weren't convinced yet, another example. Obviously, the playoffs don't really factor in, but just unbelievable. Going on the road in a playoff game as a rookie and taking down Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, Jaden Daniels is a beast. 24 for 35, 268 passing yards, 2 touchdowns to go along with 36 rushing yards for Daniels. He became the 4th rookie starting quarterback to win a road playoff game in their debut, the 3rd rookie with multiple passing touchdowns and 0 picks in a playoff game, 13th win of the season for the Washington Commanders, tied for the 2nd most by rookie in a season ever. Daniels has 13 touchdown passes in the 4th quarter or in overtime this season, including the playoffs. That's tied for the most in the NFL. There was a 92-yard touchdown drive led by Daniels in this Commanders offense, the longest by a rookie quarterback in the postseason since 1986. Jim Everett for the Rams led that one. What a day from Jaden Daniels, finding his main man, Terry McLaurin, who had 7 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown. The Commanders are the third team to not punt the ball or turn the ball over in a postseason game, joining the 2003 Colts and the 2021 Bills. This was the sixth win the Commanders had when trailing in the fourth quarter this season, and they have 6 games with a game-winning score in the final 10 seconds of the game or in overtime. That is unbelievable. 6 wins in the final 10 seconds of the game or in overtime. That is tied for the most in a season since the 1907 AFL-NFL merger with the 2021 Raiders. And that was just a tumultuous year in Las Vegas, just the second year playing in Las Vegas. That was the year when John Gruden got canceled, had to resign because of the emails that came out. Henry Ruggs, 2 days before that or 2 days after. I can't remember the timeline. This was a span of 3 days, by the way. The Raiders were having a shaky so-so season, about week 4, week 5. In a span of 3 days, Gruden's emails get leaked. He has to resign. Henry Ruggs has his car accident that ended up killing a person, going to jail. And Damon Arnett, one of our best quarterbacks, I don't know if it was arrested fully, but he posted a video on Instagram with him at an AK-47 in it. So in a span of 3 days, all 3 of those things happen, and the Raiders go on a wild run. Rich Bisaccia as the interim head coach, and they have the tied for the most ever wins in the last 10 seconds or overtime. That is unbelievable. And those 6 wins in the last 10 seconds are in overtime, the most by a quarterback since 1950. 4th game this season with a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter or overtime. Tied for the longest streak by any team since 1950, and they will take on the number 1 seed in the NFC next week, the Detroit Lions. Over to the AFC North now. The Baltimore Ravens met up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Classic rivalry meets in the playoffs yet again, and the Steelers got dominated. The Ravens were running all over them. They had no answer for the run game, and they just pounded them from the start. Lamar Jackson went 16 of 21, 175 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and 81 rushing yards. Third career playoff game with 2+ passing touchdowns for Lamar. And this game just started off with read option, read option, read option. And every time TJ Watt came screaming off the edge to take care of Derrick Henry, Lamar just pulled it, boom, easy first down. TJ Watt screaming by, boom, easy first down for Lamar. I'm not really sure what was going on, but it was just unbelievable to watch. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, whenever they did take care of Lamar, Derrick just, Lamar. You had to choose one, and the other one was going to kill you. It was really wild. Lamar Jackson became the 3rd quarterback since 1970 with 3 first-team All-Pro selections in their first 7 seasons. Dan Marino did that, and also Brett Favre. Lamar has the most rushing yards by a quarterback in postseason history, but the catch is Josh Allen's only 4 yards behind. So going into their matchup that's been so anticipated for basically all year since they played each other earlier, this is the playoff game everyone wanted to see. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are 4 yards away from each other for the all-time lead in postseason rushing yards by a quarterback. So every time one of them runs the ball, it's just going to switch. Lamar's drive, he's going to run for 20. He's up by 25. Josh Allen runs for 26. He's up. It's going to be wild to watch. The Ravens ran for 164 yards in the first half, most by any team since the 49ers in the 29 NFC Championship game. They had 299 total rushing yards in the game. 300 yards rushing. Team record for a postseason game. Guess how many yards the Steelers ran for? 29. That 270-yard difference between 2 rushing numbers is the 3rd highest in a playoff game ever. Derrick Henry, 26 carries for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ravens playoff record at 186 yards. 4th postseason game for Derrick Henry with at least 150 rushing yards. That is tied for the most all time with Terrell Davis. And it was the first time a team got shut out in the first half of a playoff by the Ravens since the Giants back in Super Bowl 35. And like I mentioned earlier, the Bills will play the Ravens next Sunday night in maybe the most anticipated game of the season. Just talk about the Steelers a little bit. Got dominated by the Baltimore Ravens for their 6th consecutive loss in the postseason. The longest streak in team history. They've allowed 28 or more points in every one of those games. That's the longest streak in NFL history, and it's tied for the longest active streak with playoff losses with Miami. Brutal. Mike Tomlin just became the first ever Super Bowl winning coach to lose 6 consecutive postseason games. They allowed 299 rushing yards. That's just unbelievable. The most in a postseason game in franchise history. And the Steelers, since their last postseason win, 80 regular season wins. Obviously, 0 playoff wins. That is a brutal stat. Heading over to the NFC North, 3 teams made the playoffs, but only 1 survives through Wild Card Weekend, and it was the one that didn't play. The Detroit Lions, the number 1 seed, obviously moving on to the divisional round, will play the Commanders on Saturday. The Minnesota Vikings took on the Los Angeles Rams in Glendale, Arizona, because the game was tragically had to move because of the horrific fires going on in Los Angeles. Thoughts and prayers out to everyone in LA. But game was played in Arizona. Sam Darnold had another pretty brutal day. In a game against the Lions last week that was for the division and the 1 seed in the NFC, Darnold did not look good. They looked terrible in the red zone. They couldn't capitalize on any drive. And in this game, it's almost like they couldn't even get into the red zone. Everything was terrible from the start. Sam Darnold, 25 of 40, 245 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. 9 sacks against Sam Darnold. 9 sacks ties the all-time postseason record that since they started tracking team stats back in 1963. Those sacks accumulated to a negative 82 yards for the Vikings. Negative 82 yards, the most net yards on sacks in the history of a playoff game, passing Bart Starr from the 1967 Ice Bowl game against the Cowboys. Unbelievable. The Vikings started 5-0 this year, lost 2 games in a row, 1 to the Lions and then 1 to the Rams. Then they go on a 9-game winning streak to get all the way to the last week of the regular season and setting themselves up to win a game and get the 1 seed in the NFC. Who do they meet again? The Lions. The Lions beat them for the second time this year, forcing them to go on the road in the playoffs to guess where? Supposed to be LA to play the Rams. And what happens again? They lose to the Rams again. So after a 5-0 start to the year, back-to-back losses, Lions-Rams, 9 wins in a row, back-to-back losses, Lions-Rams, season over. Wow, that is brutal. Lost 4 losses on the season to 2 teams. Brutal for the Vikings, and man, got a feel for the Vikings fans, man. And before this season, no 14-plus win team had ever ended their season with back-to-back losses, and the Vikings lost their last 2 games by a combined 40 points. Just a tough way to end the season. The Green Bay Packers, they lost to Philly 22-10. Jordan Love had a very tough day. Honestly, would argue that Jordan Love had a worse day than Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was just kind of happy feet and holding the ball around. Jordan Love was just being absolutely reckless. 20 of 33, 212 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. First quarterback in Packers history to have no touchdowns and 3 picks in a playoff game. It was a brutal showing from Jordan Love. The one bright spot on this Packers team, I mean, the defense played well. Defense had a pretty good day. But one bright spot on offense, Josh Jacobs was playing his ass off. Josh Jacobs, we should still have him, but, we're not a good organization. He scored a touchdown in his 9th consecutive game, the longest streak in Packers history. And, man, that is a storied franchise. No one's ever scored a touchdown in 9 consecutive games until Josh Jacobs. 10 points, fewest points scored in a game this season for the Packers. And so there's 6 losses, right? All of them were either to the Lions, the Vikings, and the Eagles. They lost to each of those teams twice. They lost to the Lions twice, the Vikings twice, and the Eagles twice, including the playoff game. And Jordan Love in those games against playoff teams, 0-6, 8 touchdowns, 8 picks, and a 58.6% completion percentage. That's going to have to get better if they want to improve in the playoffs in the future. The Houston Texans, in somewhat of a shocking game, killed the Los Angeles Chargers. It was a scoregami, the 1,091st unique score in NFL history, and it was the 6th win in Texans franchise history. All 6 have come in home wildcard games, and now they head over to Arrowhead to take on the big bad Kansas City Chiefs. Hopefully they can take them down and head up to the AFC Championship game. Obviously a little bit of bias here with the silver and black all around me. But this Texans team, man, CJ Stroud's an absolute dog. First 2 seasons, wins the division both years, wins a playoff game both years when they weren't supposed to. And man, this guy is just going to get better and better. Even though he had some struggles this year, that line wasn't very good. That could become a problem when they play the Chiefs because they have a good D-line. But honestly, both offensive lines in this Chiefs-Texans matchup could be an issue. The Buccaneers lose to Washington 23-20, and man, the Bucs really gave this game away. Between that fumble that Baker Mayfield had after the big 4th and goal stop that the defense got to give it right back to Jaden Daniels in the offense in the red zone nonetheless. And then that, I don't even know what happened. The center snapped the ball too early. Baker wasn't right. It looked like Baker was ready for it, but snapped the ball too early. None of the line moved, and Bucky Irving got smacked for a loss of 2. That forced them to kick that game-tying field goal instead of a chance to go up late, and it would have forced the Commanders to score a touchdown, not just a field goal to win the game. Man, it was a tough game. Like I said, the costly late fumble by Baker really hurt the Bucs. Baker is the first QB in NFL history to lose a playoff game with 80% completions and 2 passing touchdowns. Pretty impressive right there, but man, Jaden Daniels just didn't make any mistakes. They did go for it on 4th down basically every single time, But Jaden Daniels made the plays when he really needed to. And every time this Washington Commanders team is in a late game situation and they need to have it, Jaden Daniels looks so calm, cool, collective, and just leads them right down the field for either a touchdown or a field goal, and they win the game. It's unbelievable. He has been unbelievable. And I mentioned it, the Kansas City Chiefs will play the Texans on Saturday, 1 versus 4 matchup. So all the division winners in the AFC won. The Chiefs they didn't win, but they're next. Chiefs got the bye. The Bills won, the Ravens won, and so did the Texans. So the top 4 seeds in the AFC all move on. A little bit more of a mix-up in the NFC as the 7 seed won. Or no, not the 7 seed, the 6 seed won. I believe, yeah, right? The 6 seed. Yeah, the 6 seed won because that was the Washington Commanders who beat the Tampa Bay Bucks, excuse me. So that was an interesting one. They're going to go to Detroit to play. And then the Eagles will be playing the Rams. Talk about the Chargers for a minute. 32-12 final score after losing to Houston. Justin Herbert, 4 picks in this game. Herbert had 3 picks during the entirety of the regular season, and he had 4 in the playoffs. His first career 4-interception game. 4 picks were also the most by a Chargers QB in playoffs since 1995. Herbert's 3 picks in the regular season were the fewest in the NFL, and he's the first player in the history of the NFL to have more picks in a playoff game than he did in the whole regular season. Ladd McConkey was a great bright spot for this Chargers team. He had an unbelievable rookie season and an unbelievable game. 9 receptions for 197 yards and a touchdown. That's the 3rd most yards ever in a playoff debut behind Calvin Johnson and Demaryius Thomas. But it is the most yards ever by a rookie in their playoff debut. The Broncos started off really hot, went right down the field, scored a 43-yard bomb touchdown, which was actually the longest first quarter touchdown pass by a rookie in his playoff debut. Bo Nix, 43 yards to Troy Franklin. But then after that, all Buffalo. They controlled this game at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They ran all over this Broncos defense, and that's really all she wrote. And the Los Angeles Rams beat the Minnesota Vikings 27-9 in their first postseason win since they won Super Bowl 56. Matthew Stafford went 19 of 27, 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Rams are the second team in NFL history to have 8 or more sacks and a defensive touchdown in the same game. Gerard Verse picked up a fumble, scooped it up, and took it to the house for like 55 yards. Big back-breaking play in this game. Gerard Verse, the first rookie to score a defensive touchdown in a playoff game since J.J. Watt back in 2011. This Rams front had 6 sacks in the first half, tied for the most all time. And the other 2, so this is the 3rd time a team had 6 sacks in the first half of a playoff game. All 3 of them were against the Minnesota Vikings. The Rams had 9 sacks in total, which is tied for the most in a playoff game ever by any team since stats became tracked in 1963. And this was the 5th time the Rams had allowed 10 or fewer points in a playoff game. They will play the Eagles on Sunday, travel to the Link to take on the Birds. So, super wildcard weekend in the books. We got the divisional round next week, 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday, and then the College Football National Championship on Monday. So another great weekend of football as we wrap up mainly the main part of this show. Let's talk about the next week's matchups a little bit. So, starting off with the Chiefs and the Texans, Weird game, honestly. Both offensive lines have been struggling throughout most of the year and as of late, really. So these D lines could play a big role in this game. Obviously, both these quarterbacks are mobile, can run out of the pocket, can make plays, extend plays, and figure things out. We saw C.J. Stroud do that on that 3rd and 16 where the snap went right by his head. Stayed calm, picked it up, and picked up like 40 yards on the play. And we know Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. So this game could come down to offensive line play, I really believe. And whoever can control that line of scrimmage on offense will have a big chance of winning this football game. Then, Saturday night will be the Washington Commanders traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. Both the games on Saturday have massive spreads. Chiefs are 7.5-point favorites, and the Lions are 8.5-point favorites. So I'm kind of hoping that both those teams can cover, the Texans and the Commanders, but we'll see about that. This Lions team, last time we saw them absolutely, shook Sam Darnold back into the old self, right? He was seeing ghosts back there in the pocket, overthrowing passes in the end zone. If that Lions defense can play like it did against the Vikings 2 weeks ago, I think the Lions are going to win this game. Then Sunday, first game on Sunday will be the Rams traveling to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. I do think this game could be kind of interesting because Matthew Stafford, seasoned veteran, he's seen everything, he's won a Super Bowl. I think he could give this Philly defense a little bit of trouble, but man, they've been playing so good as of late. Probably the best unit. The Eagles or the Ravens probably have the best defensive unit as of right now playing. We'll see if they can continue in this one. But I think that Stafford could make this a game. If he can outplay Jalen Hurts, and really they're going to put this ball on Saquon's shoulders on offense, they have a chance. And then the game everyone's been waiting for, Sunday night at 6:30 when I'm going to be at a freaking wedding. Bills, Ravens in Buffalo. It's going to be maybe the game of the year. The two MVP candidates colliding. This could be an all-time classic. Whoever comes out on top, honestly, should win MVP, but that's not how the award works. I know that. I'm aware. But man, this is going to be cinema. So get yourself ready. I'll be locked in on my phone at this wedding. Trust me, I will be. But that'll do it for this week. Super Wildcard Weekend in the books. We'll see you next week after the divisional round. Peace out. I am Frank Rampant.